Claudia Whitmore thought her designer clothes and penthouse lifestyle made her untouchable. Until 5 words in a marble lobby destroyed everything she'd built. When the wealthy heiress cruelly dismissed a black delivery man as too poor to date, she had no idea those words were being recorded, or that they would cost her clients, her reputation, and force her to beg the very man she humiliated for help. But what Claudia didn't know was that the poor delivery driver held connections that could either save her family's crumbling empire or watch it burn to the ground. Sometimes the people you look down on are the only ones who can lift you up, and sometimes love grows in the most unexpected places. What happens when privilege meets humility, and when the person you wronged becomes the person you can't live without? If you're watching this story unfold, hit subscribe and tell me where you're watching from, because this tale of redemption and unexpected love will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew about worth, love, and second chances. The morning sun streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows of Claudia Whitmore's penthouse condo. She stood in front of her bathroom mirror, practicing her smile for the 10th time. Perfect teeth, perfect makeup, perfect everything. "Good morning, Mr. Harrison," she said to her reflection, adjusting the collar of her designer blazer. "Thank you so much for considering our proposal for the luxury watch campaign." Her phone buzzed, a text from her assistant. "Your usual coffee order was wrong this morning. They used oat milk instead of almond. Should I call and complain?" Claudia's jaw tightened. She typed back quickly, "Yes, and make sure they know mistakes like that are unacceptable. Nothing could be out of place today." As the communications manager for Sterling & Associates, a high-end luxury brand agency, her reputation was everything. Every detail mattered, every impression counted. She slipped on her heels and grabbed her purse. The expensive leather felt smooth in her hands. Good, real, solid, like the life she'd built around herself. Her phone chimed again. A delivery notification. Finally, the vintage pearl bracelet she'd ordered from an exclusive auction house was arriving today. It had belonged to some European countess, exactly the kind of piece that would make her colleagues jealous at tonight's networking event. Claudia rode the elevator down to the lobby of her upscale high-rise building. The marble floors gleamed. Fresh flowers sat in crystal vases. Everything here was beautiful, expensive, perfect, just like her. The lobby buzzed with activity. Residents picked up packages from the front desk. Rosa Alvarez, the building manager, looked overwhelmed as she sorted through boxes and envelopes. That's when Claudia saw him. A black man in his 30s stood near the package counter. He wore a simple uniform, navy blue polo shirt and khakis. A delivery bag hung from his shoulder. His name tag read, Malik. He was talking quietly with an elderly resident, Mrs. Patterson from the 8th floor. The woman was flirting with him, touching his arm and laughing too loud. Claudia rolled her eyes. How embarrassing. Didn't Mrs. Patterson have any dignity? "Excuse me," Rosa called out, looking frazzled. "I need to grab more packages from the back room. Malik, can you help residents sign for their deliveries while I'm gone?" The delivery man nodded. "Of course." Claudia tapped her foot, checking her watch. She had exactly 15 minutes before her video call with the Harrison account. Where was Rosa going? This was taking forever. "Ma'am," the delivery man, Malik, was standing in front of her now, holding a small package. "Claudia Whitmore?" She looked at him properly for the first time. He had kind eyes and a warm smile. His hands were clean and steady as he held her package. "Yes, that's me." She reached for the box, but he pulled out a tablet instead. "I just need your signature here, please." Claudia sighed dramatically. "This is ridiculous. I shouldn't have to wait this long for my delivery." "I understand. It'll just take a second." She scribbled her name on the screen, not really looking at him. Behind them, Mrs. Patterson was still chatting with another delivery person, giggling like a teenager. "Some people have no shame," Claudia muttered, loud enough for Malik to hear. He didn't respond. just handed her the package professionally. "Thank you for choosing Express Delivery Services," he said politely. Claudia was about to walk away when Mrs. Patterson's voice carried across the lobby. "You know, Malik, you should ask me to dinner sometime. I bet you know all the best places in town." The older woman winked at him. Malik smiled uncomfortably, but stayed professional. "That's very kind, Mrs. Patterson, but—" "Oh, come on," Mrs. Patterson interrupted. "A handsome man like you must have lots of girlfriends." Claudia watched the scene with disgust. Then she heard herself speaking before she could stop the words. "I don't date black men," she said, her voice carrying clearly through the marble lobby. "They're too poor." The words hung in the air like a slap. The lobby went quiet. Mrs. Patterson's mouth fell open. Rosa, who had just returned with more packages, froze in the doorway. But it was Malik's face that made Claudia's stomach twist. His expression didn't change much. He didn't shout or argue, but his eyes went completely cold. He finished putting his tablet away with careful, measured movements. "Have a good day, Ms. Whitmore," he said quietly. Then he picked up his delivery bag and walked toward the door. Claudia felt heat rising in her cheeks. Everyone was staring at her. She clutched her package tighter and headed for the elevator, her heels clicking loudly on the marble floor. Behind her, she heard Rosa's voice, soft but sharp. "People heard that, Claudia. So did he." The elevator doors closed before Claudia could respond. In the lobby, Malik finished organizing the last of his deliveries. His hands moved automatically, sorting, checking addresses, updating his route. But inside, his chest felt tight. They're too poor. He'd heard worse. Growing up in Detroit, working his way through community college, building his delivery route from nothing, he'd faced plenty of people who looked at him and saw less than human. But something about the casual cruelty in her voice cut deep. Rosa approached him carefully. "Malik, I'm so sorry. That was—" "Don't worry about it," he said, forcing a smile. "Some people think their money makes them better than others. It doesn't." "I know." He shouldered his bag. "I've got 6 more stops before lunch." Outside the building, Malik stood for a moment in the warm afternoon sun. He pulled out his phone and checked his next delivery address. Then he put the phone away and took a deep breath. He wouldn't let someone like Claudia Whitmore ruin his day. He had work to do. Meanwhile, back in the lobby, Rosa shook her head as she watched Claudia disappear into the elevator. She'd managed this building for 8 years. She'd seen plenty of entitled residents, but this was different. This was cruel. Her phone buzzed with a text notification. Someone in the building had already started a group chat about what they'd witnessed. Rosa sighed. This was going to be a problem. That afternoon, Claudia sat in her office trying to focus on the Harrison presentation, but her phone kept buzzing with notifications from her work group chat. "Did you hear what happened at Claudia's building? Someone sent me this crazy voice note." I can't believe she actually said that Claudia's hands trembled as she scrolled through the messages. Someone, she couldn't tell who, had recorded what happened in the lobby. Not video, just audio. But it was clear enough. Her own voice, bright and cutting. "I don't date black men. They're too poor." The recording was already spreading through her professional network. People were sharing it in private messages, forwarding it to friends. Claudia's chest tightened. This wasn't supposed to happen. It was just a thoughtless comment. A joke, really. She'd been frustrated and tired, and the words had slipped out. But listening to herself now, hearing the casual cruelty in her voice, it didn't sound like a joke at all. Her phone rang. The Harrison account. "Claudia, this is David Harrison. I'm afraid we need to postpone our meeting today." "Of course, Mr. Harrison. Is everything all right?" There was a pause. "I think you should focus on handling your current situation. We'll be in touch." The line went dead. Claudia stared at her phone screen. Her hands were shaking now. That evening, she forced herself to attend the networking event at an upscale restaurant downtown. Maybe if she acted normal, this whole thing would blow over. She joined a group of colleagues near the bar, trying to smile and make small talk. But the conversations felt stilted. People kept glancing at their phones. "So," said Jennifer from the marketing department, taking a sip of her wine. "Interesting day for you, Claudia." Claudia's laugh sounded too high. "Oh, that silly thing in my building? It was totally taken out of context." "Was it?" Jennifer's eyebrows rose. "Because the recording seems pretty clear." "It was a joke," Claudia said quickly. "People are so sensitive these days." The group went quiet. Jennifer set down her wine glass. "Actually," she said carefully, "I don't think poverty is funny, and I don't think racism is either." Claudia felt her face burning. "I'm not racist. I have plenty of black friends." "Name one," said Marcus, a junior account executive. Claudia opened her mouth, then closed it. "Look," she said, her voice getting defensive. "I work hard for what I have. I've earned my success. There's nothing wrong with having standards." Marcus shook his head. "Standards? That's what you're calling it?" "I just think people should date within their social circles," Claudia stammered. "It makes sense. Common interests, similar backgrounds." "You mean similar bank accounts?" Jennifer interrupted. The group began to drift away, one by one, making excuses about early mornings and long drives home. Claudia found herself standing alone at the bar, her drink untouched. For the first time in years, her perfect life felt fragile. The next morning, Claudia woke to her phone buzzing with notifications. The audio clip had spread beyond her work circle. Someone had posted it on a local community Facebook group. People were sharing it, commenting, expressing their disgust. "This is absolutely disgusting. I can't believe someone would say this in 2024. Poor man was just doing his job." Claudia's stomach churned as she scrolled through the comments. A few people were defending her, saying everyone deserved privacy and the recording was illegal. But most were horrified by what she'd said. She threw her phone down and headed for the shower. Maybe if she got dressed and went about her normal routine, this would all disappear. But when she stepped into the lobby an hour later, she felt eyes on her from every direction. The morning crowd of residents getting coffee and picking up packages seemed to pause their conversations as she passed. Rosa looked up from the front desk, but didn't smile. "Morning, Rosa," Claudia said, trying to sound normal. "Morning." Rosa's voice was cool and professional, nothing more. Claudia pretended to check her mail, but really she was listening to the whispered conversations around her. "That's her. Can you believe she lives here? Poor man." Her hands shook as she sorted through bills and catalogs. When she looked up, she saw Malik walking through the front doors with another delivery bag. Their eyes met for a split second. His expression was completely neutral. Not angry, not hurt, just distant. Like she was a stranger. He approached the front desk and spoke quietly to Rosa. Claudia couldn't hear their conversation, but she saw Rosa nod and point toward the package room. Malik headed in that direction, without glancing at Claudia again. She followed him, not sure why. "Excuse me," she called out when they were alone in the package room. "About yesterday." Malik didn't stop sorting packages. "Ms. Whitmore. I wanted to explain what I said. If you took it the wrong way." He looked up then, his dark eyes steady. "That's not an apology. I'm sorry you're upset, but no." His voice was calm but firm. "You're not sorry about what you said. You're sorry it got recorded." Claudia's mouth opened and closed. She felt heat rising in her cheeks. "You don't know anything about me," she said finally. "You're right," Malik replied, going back to his work. "And after yesterday, I know I don't want to." He finished organizing the packages and headed for the door. Claudia wanted to say something else, to explain herself, to make him understand, but the words wouldn't come. After he left, she stood alone in the package room, surrounded by boxes and envelopes addressed to her neighbors. People who now thought she was a terrible person. Maybe they were right. Later that morning, Claudia realized her grandmother's pearl bracelet was missing. The vintage piece she'd been so excited to receive wasn't in her condo. She tore through her purse, her desk, every surface where she might have set it down. Panic rose in her chest. The bracelet was worth more than most people made in 6 months. But worse than the money, it was an heirloom. Her grandmother had worn it to her wedding. Claudia had planned to wear it to the Harrison presentation. She rushed back down to the package room, her heart pounding. Maybe it had fallen out of the box when she'd signed for it yesterday. Maybe it was on the floor somewhere, mixed in with other people's mail. Rosa was behind the front desk when Claudia burst through the lobby doors. "I need to search the package room," Claudia announced, slightly out of breath. "Something's missing from my delivery yesterday." Rosa looked up calmly. "What kind of something?" "A bracelet. Vintage pearls. It's very valuable." "I see." Rosa's tone was neutral. "When did you notice it was gone?" "Just now. It has to be in that package room. There was so much chaos yesterday, with all the deliveries and people everywhere." Claudia's voice was getting higher, more frantic. Someone could have taken it, or maybe it fell behind something. Rosa studied her carefully. "Are you suggesting one of our delivery people stole from you?" "I'm not suggesting anything," Claudia said quickly. "I'm just saying there were a lot of people in and out of that room yesterday." But even as she said it, she could feel the accusation hanging in the air. The implication was clear. Rosa's expression hardened. "Claudia, I need you to be very careful about what you're saying here." "I'm not saying anyone did anything wrong," Claudia backtracked. "I just need to look for my bracelet." "Fine, but I'm coming with you." They searched the package room together, moving boxes and checking behind furniture. Claudia grew more desperate with each empty corner. "It has to be here," she muttered, pulling mail slots apart. "It has to be." But the bracelet was nowhere to be found. That afternoon, Malik returned to the building with another delivery load. He approached Rosa first, pulling something small from his pocket. "I found this yesterday," he said quietly, placing the pearl bracelet on the counter. "It was on the floor near the package area. I picked it up and meant to give it to you, but everything was so busy." Rosa examined the bracelet, then looked up at Malik. "You kept it overnight?" "I wanted to make sure it got back to the right person safely," Malik said. "I checked the security camera. You can see me pick it up right there." He pointed to the camera mounted above the package room entrance. "Why didn't you just leave it on the counter?" Malik hesitated. "With everything that happened yesterday, I thought it was better to be careful. Make sure there were no questions about where it came from or how it got returned." Rosa nodded slowly. She understood. 20 minutes later, Claudia came down to check on the search again. When she saw Malik standing at the front desk, her stomach dropped. "Ms. Whitmore," Rosa called out. "Malik found your bracelet." Claudia froze. The implication hit her immediately. She'd been ready to accuse him of theft, and instead, he'd kept her property safe. Malik held out the bracelet without a word. Claudia took it with trembling hands. Thank you." She reached into her purse and pulled out her wallet, extracting several $100 bills. "Please, take this. For your trouble." Malik looked at the money for a long moment. Then he met her eyes. "Keep it," he said quietly. "Just be different." He picked up his delivery bag and walked away, leaving Claudia standing in the middle of the lobby with cash in one hand and her grandmother's bracelet in the other. That evening, alone in her penthouse, Claudia sat on her couch staring at the pearls. They caught the light from her floor-to-ceiling windows, gleaming softly in her palm. Just be different. What did that even mean? She wasn't a bad person. She worked hard. She paid her taxes. She donated to charity every December for the tax write-off. Her phone buzzed with an email notification. Her boss, Claudia. We need to meet first thing tomorrow morning to discuss a sensitive matter. Please be in my office at 8 a.m. sharp. Susan Claudia's chest tightened. A sensitive matter. She knew exactly what this was about. She set the bracelet on her coffee table and buried her face in her hands. For the first time in years, her perfect life was falling apart, and she was starting to realize that maybe, just maybe, she deserved it. The next morning came too soon. Claudia sat in her car outside Sterling and Associates, staring up at the sleek glass building where she'd worked for 4 years. Her hands gripped the steering wheel so tight her knuckles were white. Susan Chen's office was on the 15th floor. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city. Awards lined the walls. Everything about the space screamed success and power. "Sit down, Claudia," Susan said without looking up from her laptop. Claudia perched on the edge of the leather chair across from Susan's desk. Her boss continued typing for another full minute before closing the laptop and folding her hands. "I'm sure you know why you're here." "The recording," Claudia said quietly. "The recording." Susan's voice was flat. "Of you saying you don't date black men because they're too poor." Hearing it repeated back made Claudia's stomach twist. "Susan, I can explain." "Can you?" Susan leaned back in her chair. "Because I've listened to that clip 12 times, and I can't figure out how to explain it to our clients." Claudia's mouth went dry. "Our clients?" "The Harrison Group called yesterday. They're pulling their account." The words hit Claudia like a slap. The Harrison account was worth $500,000 a year. She'd been working on their campaign for months. "They can't do that," Claudia whispered. "They can, and they did." Susan pulled out a folder from her desk drawer. "Morrison Electronics is reconsidering their partnership. Valencia Fashion wants to know if we share your values. 3 other accounts are asking questions." Claudia felt the room spinning. "This is crazy. It was a private conversation. Someone illegally recorded me. In the lobby of your building, where anyone could hear." Susan's voice was sharp now. "Claudia, you're the face of our communications department. When you speak, you represent this company. So, what are you saying?" Susan was quiet for a long moment. Then, "I'm saying you need to fix this. Quietly, carefully. No big public apologies that draw more attention. No social media statements. Just handle it." "How?" "I don't know, but figure it out fast. Because if we lose more accounts over this, I'll have to make some difficult decisions about your future here." Claudia walked out of Susan's office feeling like her legs might give out. In the elevator, she caught her reflection in the polished steel doors. She looked pale and tired. Scared. For the first time in her adult life, her job wasn't safe. Back at her apartment building that afternoon, Claudia tried to avoid the lobby. She used the side entrance and took the stairs to avoid running into neighbors. But she couldn't avoid Malik forever. She saw him through the glass doors, delivering packages to Rosa. He moved with calm efficiency, checking his tablet and organizing boxes. Professional, reliable. The opposite of everything she'd assumed about him. Claudia took a deep breath and pushed through the lobby doors. "Malik?" Her voice came out smaller than she'd intended. He looked up, but didn't stop working. "Ms. Whitmore." "I wanted to apologize. Really apologize, not like yesterday." Rosa glanced between them but didn't move away from the front desk. Claudia had rehearsed this speech in her car. "What I said was wrong. It was cruel and ignorant. I don't have an excuse." Malik set down his tablet and looked at her directly. "Okay. I'm sorry," she said again, waiting for some sign of forgiveness. Malik nodded once. I heard you. That was it. He picked up his tablet and went back to work. Don't apologize to feel clean, he said without looking at her. Change what you do next time. The words were simple, but they cut deep. Claudia wanted to argue, to explain that she really meant it this time. But something about his calm certainty made her stop. She was halfway to the elevator when her phone rang. Claudia, it's Mom. Evelyn Whitmore's voice was tight with stress. I need a favor, honey. A big one. What's wrong? Your father's blood pressure medication ran out, and our pharmacy made a mistake with the refill. They're saying it won't be ready until Monday, but he needs it tonight. Our usual driver canceled because of the weather. Claudia looked out the lobby windows. Dark clouds were gathering, and rain had started to fall. Can't you just pick it up yourself? Graham took the car to get it detailed, and the service is running late. Claudia, this is serious. The doctor said he can't miss more than 1 dose. Claudia's mind raced. She could call a rideshare, but with the weather turning bad, wait times would be terrible. Her usual car service was booked solid. Which pharmacy? She asked, already knowing she was going to regret this. St. Mary's on 5th Street. But honey, they close at 8, and it's almost 6 now. With this traffic and rain. Claudia closed her eyes. There was only one person in the lobby who could navigate the city quickly, who knew every shortcut and back road. The person she'd insulted and humiliated 2 days ago. I'll handle it, Mom. She hung up and walked back toward the package counter. Malik was finishing up his delivery log. Excuse me, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. He looked up, waiting. I need help. The words felt like swallowing glass. My father needs medication from a pharmacy across town. It closes at 8, and with this weather. You want me to drive you? It wasn't a question. Claudia nodded. Malik was quiet for a long moment. Then, where's the pharmacy? St. Mary's on 5th Street. He checked his watch. That's cutting it close with traffic. I know, I can pay you. Whatever you usually charge. I don't want your money, Malik said firmly, but I'll take you, because someone needs medication. Relief flooded through Claudia's chest. Thank you, really, thank you. Give me 5 minutes to finish here. Malik's delivery van was older than Claudia's car, but spotlessly clean. The radio played soft jazz, and the seats were comfortable. As they pulled out of the building's garage, Claudia realized this was the closest she'd been to Malik since the lobby incident. He drove like he did everything else, calm and competent. He knew exactly which streets to avoid and which shortcuts would save time. You've been doing this long? Claudia asked, then immediately regretted it. Small talk felt wrong after everything that had happened. 3 years, Malik answered simply. Do you like it? He glanced at her briefly. It's honest work. The word stung, even though his tone wasn't cruel. Claudia understood the implication. Unlike her job, which involved spinning words and managing images, his work was straightforward. No games, no lies. They drove in silence for several minutes. Rain drummed against the windshield, and traffic crept along the downtown streets. Can I ask you something? Malik said eventually. Claudia tensed. Okay. Why did you say that? In the lobby. She'd been dreading this question for 2 days. Now, trapped in his van with nowhere to hide, she had to answer. I don't know, she said finally. That's not an answer. Claudia stared out the passenger window. I was frustrated and tired. And Mrs. Patterson was being so what? Embarrassing, flirting like that. Claudia's voice was quiet. It made me uncomfortable. So you decided to insult me instead. I wasn't thinking about you at all, Claudia admitted. I was just reacting. Malik was quiet for a moment. That's the problem. What do you mean? You weren't thinking about me. You talked about me like I wasn't there, like I wasn't a person. The words hit harder than any angry shout would have. Claudia felt tears prick at her eyes. "You're right," she whispered. They pulled into the pharmacy parking lot with 10 minutes to spare. Claudia ran inside while Malik waited in the van. The pharmacist had her father's medication ready, and she paid quickly before rushing back outside. "Got it," she said, climbing back into the passenger seat. Malik started the engine. Good. On the drive back, Claudia found herself studying his profile. Strong jaw, kind eyes focused on the road, hands steady on the steering wheel. Everything about him suggested reliability and strength. "Why did you help me tonight?" she asked. Malik was quiet for so long she thought he wouldn't answer. Then, "Because somebody needed help. That's reason enough." "Even after what I said?" "What you said was about you, not me," Malik replied. "I know who I am. I know what I'm worth. You don't get to change that." Claudia felt something crack open in her chest. "I wish I had that kind of confidence." "You do. You just use yours to tear other people down instead of building yourself up." They were back at the building now. Malik parked in the delivery zone and turned off the engine. "Thank you," Claudia said, not moving to get out yet. "Really, you saved my father tonight." Malik nodded. "I hope he feels better." "Malik, You should go," he said gently. "Your family's waiting." Claudia wanted to say more, to try again to make him understand that she wasn't the person he thought she was. But maybe that was the problem. Maybe she was exactly that person, and she just didn't want to admit it. She got out of the van and watched him drive away into the rainy night. The next few days passed in a blur of damage control. Claudia tried to focus on work, but every meeting felt different. Colleagues who used to seek her advice now seemed distant. Invitations to lunch stopped coming. The audio clip had mostly stopped spreading, but its impact lingered. 3 more clients had asked uncomfortable questions about the company's values. Susan was polite but cool, watching Claudia's every move. At home, things weren't much better. Claudia's parents came for dinner Friday night, a weekly tradition she usually looked forward to. Graham Whitmore dominated the conversation, as always. He was a successful real estate developer with strong opinions about everything. Evelyn sat quietly, picking at her salad and nodding at appropriate moments. "So," Graham said, cutting into his steak, "I heard about your little situation at work." Claudia's fork stopped halfway to her mouth. "My situation?" "The recording. Very unfortunate. But these things blow over if you handle them correctly." "Dad." "I've dealt with PR nightmares before," Graham continued. "The key is controlling the narrative. Have you considered a statement? Something about how your words were taken out of context." Claudia thought about Malik's calm voice. "That's not an apology." "I don't think that would help," she said. "Nonsense. People love a comeback story. Wrongly accused woman fights back against cancel culture." Graham warmed to his theme. "We could even get you on some podcasts. Turn this whole thing into a positive." "Graham," Evelyn said quietly. "Maybe we should listen to what Claudia wants to do." "What I want," Claudia said slowly, "is to figure out how to make things right." Her father frowned. "Right?" "Claudia, you made one comment that got blown out of proportion. You don't owe anyone anything." "I hurt someone." "Who? That delivery boy?" Graham waved dismissively. "I'm sure he's forgotten about it already. People like that don't hold grudges about silly comments." "People like that." The phrase made Claudia's stomach turn. "His name is Malik," she said. "And he's not a boy. He's a man doing honest work." Graham raised an eyebrow. "Since when do you care about delivery people?" "Since one of them helped me when I needed it most," Claudia thought. "Since one of them showed me more grace than I deserved. Since I realized I've been a terrible person," she said out loud. The table went quiet. Evelyn set down her wine glass. "Claudia, honey," her mother said carefully, "you're being too hard on yourself." "Am I? Because I listened to that recording and I sounded like someone I don't want to be." Graham's jaw tightened. "You sounded like someone with standards. There's nothing wrong with knowing what you want in life." "Standards?" Claudia's voice was rising now. "Dad, I judged a complete stranger based on his skin color and his job. How is that having standards? You judged him based on economic compatibility. I judged him based on prejudice." Claudia pushed her plate away. And it was ugly. And wrong. Her parents exchanged glances. This wasn't the daughter they knew. The one who'd always shared their values, their priorities. "Well," Graham said finally, "what's done is done. The important thing now is protecting your reputation and your career." But as Claudia looked at her parents' faces, concerned about image, about damage control, about everything except the person she'd hurt, she realized something that made her chest tight with panic. She was becoming just like them. And that terrified her more than losing her job ever could. Saturday morning, Claudia woke up to her phone buzzing. A text from an unknown number. "This is Rosa from your building. Malik's delivery truck broke down on his route today. He's got elderly customers who need their medications. Thought you might want to know." Claudia stared at the message. Why was Rosa telling her this? Another text. "He's too proud to ask for help, but some of these people really need their prescriptions." Claudia thought about her father's medication run earlier that week. How stressed her mother had been about the timing. How relief had flooded through her when Malik agreed to help. She texted back. "Where is he?" "Corner of Oak and 3rd. Van's been there since 8 a.m. Claudia checked the clock. It was almost noon. Without letting herself think too hard about it, she grabbed her keys and headed for the garage. She found Malik's delivery van parked on a side street, hood up. He was on the phone, pacing back and forth beside the vehicle. "I understand that, but I've got 12 deliveries left, including 3 medications that can't wait until Monday," he was saying as Claudia approached. "Can you at least tell me how long it'll be?" He saw her coming and his expression shifted to confusion. "I have to call you back," he said, hanging up the phone. "Rosa texted me," Claudia said by way of explanation. "She said you were stuck." Malik's jaw was tight with frustration. "It's the alternator. Tow truck won't be here for 2 hours, and the repair shop is closed until Monday." "What about the deliveries?" "I've been calling other drivers, but everyone's booked solid on Saturdays." He ran a hand over his face. "Some of these people, Mrs. Chen has diabetes medication. Mr. Martinez just had surgery." Claudia looked at the boxes in the back of his van, then at her own car parked behind his truck. "My car's right there," she said. Malik followed her gaze to the sleek BMW, then looked back at her with surprise. "You're offering to help with deliveries." "I'm offering to drive you to finish your route," Claudia said. "If you want." Malik was quiet for a long moment, studying her face like he was trying to figure out her angle. "Why?" he asked finally. Claudia thought about all the easy answers she could give. Because Rosa asked her to. Because it was the right thing to do. Because she felt guilty. But standing there in the morning sun, looking at his tired face and thinking about elderly people waiting for medication they needed, she realized there was a simpler truth. "Because you helped me when I needed it," she said, "even though I didn't deserve it." Malik was quiet for another moment. Then he nodded. "Okay, let's go." Loading the delivery boxes into her BMW felt surreal. Claudia had never had anything in her back seat except shopping bags and gym clothes. Now, prescription bottles rattled softly in cardboard containers as Malik navigated them through the city. The first stop was a senior living facility downtown. Malik grabbed 2 packages and headed for the entrance. "Should I wait in the car?" Claudia asked. "Come on," Malik said. Mrs. Chen likes meeting new people. Mrs. Chen turned out to be a tiny woman with bright eyes and a warm smile. She was waiting in the facility's lobby when they arrived. Malik, I was worried when you were late. Sorry, Mrs. Chen. Had some truck trouble. This is Claudia. She's helping me finish my route. Mrs. Chen's eyes twinkled as she looked between them. How nice to meet you, dear. Malik's told us so much about his work. Claudia found herself smiling. He's very dedicated. The best delivery driver we've ever had, Mrs. Chen said firmly. Always on time, always polite. Some of the other drivers just drop packages and leave, but Malik makes sure we get everything safely. As they walked back to the car, Claudia felt something shifting in her understanding of Malik's work. This wasn't just a job to him. These were his people. He cared about them. The next stop was a house in a modest neighborhood. Mr. Martinez answered the door using a walker, moving slowly but smiling broadly when he saw Malik. There's my friend. I was starting to worry. Never worry, Mr. Martinez. We always get your medication to you. And who's this lovely lady? This is Claudia. She's helping me out today. Mr. Martinez shook Claudia's hand warmly. Any friend of Malik's is a friend of mine. This young man is an angel, you know. When I was in the hospital last month, he made sure my wife got all my prescriptions on time. Even came by on his day off to check on us. In the car afterward, Claudia was quiet. You okay? Malik asked. You visited him in the hospital? Malik shrugged. His wife was stressed about managing all his medications. It wasn't a big deal. But it was a big deal. Claudia was starting to see that Malik's job wasn't just about delivering packages. He was part of these people's lives. They trusted him, depended on him, respected him. As they finished the last delivery of the day, Claudia realized something that made her chest tight with shame. She'd spent her whole life measuring people's worth by their bank accounts and job titles. But watching Malik work, seeing how much he cared about doing his job well, how much his customers appreciated him, she understood that she'd been measuring the wrong things entirely. Thank you, Malik said as they pulled back up to his broken-down van. Really, you saved 12 people from having a rough weekend. Thank you for letting me help, Claudia said. I learned something today. What's that? Claudia looked at him. Really looked at him. I learned that I've been judging people all wrong. Malik was quiet for a moment. Then, that's a start. As Claudia drove home alone, she found herself thinking about Mrs. Chen's bright smile and Mr. Martinez's grateful handshake. About the way Malik knew everyone's names and remembered their stories. About how much respect he'd earned through simple kindness and reliability. And for the first time since the lobby incident, she felt something other than shame and panic. She felt hope. Maybe it wasn't too late to become a different person. Maybe she could learn to measure worth the way Malik did, not by what people owned, but by how they treated others. Maybe she could learn to be someone worth knowing. Over the next 2 weeks, something shifted between Claudia and Malik. Not romance, not yet, but a careful friendship built on small moments and quiet respect. When Malik made deliveries to the building, Claudia would nod hello if she saw him. Sometimes she'd ask how Mrs. Chen was doing, or if Mr. Martinez was feeling better. Malik would answer politely, and they'd exchange a few words before he continued with his work. It wasn't much, but it was real. Claudia started paying attention to things she'd never noticed before. How Rosa's face lit up when Malik arrived with packages. How other residents had started greeting him by name. How he always held doors for elderly people and helped carry heavy boxes without being asked. She also noticed the looks some residents still gave her, whispered conversations that stopped when she walked by. The audio clip had mostly faded from social media, but her building was small. People remembered. At work, things remained tense. Susan watched Claudia carefully, and 2 more clients had quietly moved their business elsewhere. But Claudia was working harder than ever, staying late and double-checking every project. She couldn't undo what she'd said, but she could prove she was still good at her job. One Thursday afternoon, as Claudia was checking her mail, she heard familiar voices in the lobby. Malik was talking to a woman about his age, someone Claudia had never seen before. "The truck's running fine now," Malik was saying. "Thanks for covering my route last week when it broke down." "No problem. That's what friends are for." The woman had a warm smile and kind eyes. "How are things here? Still dealing with—" She gestured vaguely around the fancy lobby. Malik glanced toward Claudia, who was pretending to sort through catalogs. "Things are better. People change sometimes." "Do they?" The woman's voice was skeptical. "Because I've seen people like her before, Malik. They say sorry when they get caught, but they don't actually change." Claudia's cheeks burned. She wanted to defend herself. But what could she say? The woman wasn't wrong to be suspicious. "Tasha," Malik said quietly. "Give it time." Tasha. This must be the co-worker Rosa had mentioned. Malik's friend who was protective of him. "I just don't want to see you get hurt," Tasha continued. "You have a good heart, but some people don't deserve the chances you give them." Claudia gathered her mail quickly and headed for the elevator, but she could feel Tasha's eyes following her. Later that evening, Claudia was walking back from the grocery store when she saw Malik getting into his personal car in the building's garage. Without thinking about it, she approached. "Malik, can I talk to you for a minute?" He looked tired after his long delivery route, but he nodded. "What's on your mind?" "I met your friend Tasha today, sort of." Malik's expression became guarded. "She's protective of people she cares about. She thinks I'm going to hurt you. Are you?" The question caught Claudia off guard. She'd been expecting him to reassure her that Tasha was wrong, that he trusted her now. "I don't want to," she said finally. "That's not the same thing." Claudia leaned against his car, suddenly exhausted. "How do I prove I've changed? What do I have to do to make people believe me?" Malik was quiet for a long moment. "You don't prove it by trying to prove it. You just keep being different, day after day, until being different becomes who you are. That could take years." "Yeah, it could." The simple honesty in his voice made Claudia's chest tight. "And you're okay with that? With waiting to see if I'm actually different? Or just pretending?" Malik looked at her carefully. "I'm okay with getting to know the real you, whoever that turns out to be." Something about the way he said it, patient but not naive, hopeful but not foolish, made Claudia's heart skip. For the first time, she wondered if the feeling growing in her chest might be more than just guilt and gratitude. "Would you like to get coffee sometime?" The words tumbled out before she could stop them. "Just coffee, as friends." Malik smiled, a real smile, not the polite one he used for difficult customers. "I'd like that." They met Saturday morning at a small cafe downtown. Nothing fancy, just a neighborhood place with mismatched chairs and local art on the walls. Claudia almost overdressed, then changed into jeans and a simple sweater at the last minute. Malik was already there when she arrived, reading a paperback book and drinking black coffee. He looked relaxed in a way she'd never seen before. Not working, not being professional, just being himself. "Good book?" she asked, sliding into the chair across from him. "My grandmother's recommendation. She's always trying to improve my mind." He held up the cover, a biography of a jazz musician she'd never heard of. "Tell me about her." Malik's whole face changed when he talked about Lillian Johnson. How she'd raised him after his parents died in a car accident when he was 12. How she'd worked 2 jobs to keep him in school and out of trouble. How she still cooked Sunday dinner for him every week and lectured him about eating enough vegetables. "She sounds wonderful," Claudia said, and meant it. "She is. Tough as nails, but the kindest person I know." Malik took a sip of his coffee. What about your family? Claudia thought about her parents' dinner conversation, her father's casual dismissal of people like that. They're complicated, she said finally. How so? They taught me to measure people by what they own instead of who they are, and it took me 29 years to figure out how wrong that was. Malik nodded slowly. That's a hard lesson to unlearn. Yeah. Claudia stirred her latte, watching the foam swirl. Can I ask you something? Sure. Why aren't you angry with me? I mean really angry. I was horrible to you. Malik was quiet for a moment, considering. I was angry. For about a day. But staying angry. That's just letting you control how I feel. And I don't give that power to anyone. So you just decided not to be angry? I decided to see what you'd do next. Actions matter more than words. They talked for 2 hours. About books and music and places they'd traveled. About Malik's community college business classes and his plan to eventually start his own delivery company. About Claudia's work and why she'd chosen communications as a career. I like solving problems, she said. Figuring out how to say things so people understand them. Although lately I've been wondering if I've been solving the wrong problems. What do you mean? I spend all day crafting messages to make rich people want expensive things they don't need. But you solve problems that actually matter. Getting medicine to people who need it. Making sure elderly folks aren't forgotten. Malik smiled. It's just a job. No, it's not. I saw how your customers look at you. You're part of their lives. So are you, probably. People whose businesses you promote. Customers who buy things that make them happy. Claudia shook her head. It's not the same. Maybe not. But maybe there are ways to make it more meaningful. As they walked back to their cars, Claudia felt lighter than she had in weeks. Talking to Malik was easy in a way she wasn't used to. No performance, no careful image management, just conversation. This was nice, she said when they reached her BMW. It was. Malik hesitated. Claudia, I need to be honest about something. Her stomach dropped. Okay. Tasha and some of my other friends. They think you're just feeling guilty. That once the guilt goes away, you'll go back to how you were before. Claudia wanted to protest, to insist they were wrong, but she could see the worry in Malik's eyes. What do you think? She asked quietly. I think you're trying to change, but I also think change is harder than most people realize. So, what does that mean for this? She gestured between them. It means we take things slow. It means you keep showing up, and I keep paying attention, and we see what happens. Claudia nodded, though part of her wished he'd just said he trusted her completely. But maybe that was the old Claudia talking, the one who wanted immediate results and easy answers. The new Claudia, the one she was trying to become, understood that trust had to be earned over time. 2 weeks later, Claudia got a call that changed everything. Claudia, honey, I need you to come over right away. Her mother's voice was strained. Mom, what's wrong? It's your father. He had some kind of episode at his office. They're saying it was stress-related, but the doctor wants to run more tests. Claudia's hands started shaking. Is he okay? He's stable, but Claudia... Evelyn's voice broke. There's something else. Something about his business. Claudia drove to her parents' house in a daze. Graham Whitmore had always seemed invincible, larger than life, always in control. The idea of him being vulnerable, even sick, was terrifying. She found her parents in the living room. Graham looked pale and tired, sitting in his leather armchair with documents spread across the coffee table. Dad, how are you feeling? I'm fine. It's just stress. But his voice was weaker than usual. Sit down, honey. We need to talk. Evelyn took Claudia's hand. There are some financial problems with your father's company. Bad investments, projects that didn't work out. How bad? Claudia asked. Graham's jaw was tight. Bad enough that we might lose the house, the company, everything. The words hit Claudia like a physical blow. Her parents had been wealthy her entire life. Their money had shaped everything: where she'd gone to school, how she'd been raised, what she'd been taught to value. There might be a solution, Graham continued, but it's complicated. He handed her a business card, Johnson & Associates Consulting. Malik Johnson. Claudia's voice came out as a whisper. Apparently your delivery boy has family in finance, Graham said. His cousin owns a consulting firm that specializes in helping struggling businesses restructure their debt. Very successful, very connected. Claudia stared at the card, her mind reeling. I did some research, Graham continued. The cousin, Marcus Johnson, has helped several companies avoid bankruptcy. But his services don't come cheap, and he's very selective about his clients. You want me to ask Malik to talk to his cousin? I want you to use whatever relationship you have with him to get us a meeting, Graham said bluntly. This could save everything we've worked for. Claudia felt sick. Dad, I can't. Claudia, please. Her mother's voice was desperate. We've lost almost everything. The medical bills from your father's tests, the business debts. We might have to declare bankruptcy. And if that happens, Graham added, it affects you too. Your job, your reputation, your own financial security. Everything is connected. Claudia looked at her parents, really looked at them. For the first time, she saw past the perfect clothes and expensive furniture. They looked scared, old, human. But underneath her sympathy was a growing horror. They weren't asking her to help them because they'd changed, because they understood what they'd done wrong. They were asking her to use Malik, the man they'd dismissed as worthless just weeks ago, to save themselves. I need time to think about this, Claudia said finally. There is no time, Graham snapped. We need to move fast before word gets out about our situation. Then you ask him yourself. Graham's face hardened. That man won't even talk to me after what happened. But he might listen to you. The truth hung in the air between them. Graham expected Claudia to trade on whatever relationship she'd built with Malik to save their family's fortune. To use him, just like she'd been accused of doing all along. I have to go, Claudia said, standing up abruptly. Claudia, wait! But she was already heading for the door, her parents' desperate voices fading behind her. Claudia drove around the city for hours, her mind spinning. Her phone kept buzzing with texts from her mother, but she couldn't bring herself to read them. Finally, she found herself parked outside Malik's apartment building in a modest neighborhood across town. She didn't even remember driving there. She sat in her car for 20 minutes, trying to figure out what to say. How do you ask someone for a favor that could save your family's fortune, when that someone has every reason not to trust your motives? How do you prove your feelings are real, when those feelings could benefit you so much? Her phone rang. Malik. Hey, she answered, trying to keep her voice steady. I saw your car from my window. You okay? Can I come up? I need to talk to you about something. Of course. Malik's apartment was small but comfortable. Books lined the walls, and family photos sat on every surface. It felt warm and lived in. Nothing like Claudia's sterile penthouse. Something's wrong, Malik said, studying her face. What happened? Claudia took a deep breath and told him everything. Her father's health scare, the financial crisis, the business card. She watched his expression change as she explained. So your father wants me to ask my cousin for help, Malik said when she finished. I know how it sounds. How does it sound? Like I've been playing a long game. Like everything between us has been about getting close to you so I could use you when I needed something. Malik was quiet for a long moment. Is that what this has been? The question hung in the air between them. Claudia felt tears starting to form. I don't know, she whispered. I don't know anymore. My feelings for you. They're real. I know they're real. But my family is desperate and I love them even though they're flawed. And I don't know how to separate what I want from what they need. Malik sat back on his couch, studying her. What do you want me to do? I want you to say no, Claudia said, surprising them both. I want you to refuse to help, so I know that nothing between us is about money or favors or what you can do for my family. And if I say yes, then I'll spend the rest of my life wondering if you only helped because you care about me, or if I manipulated you into it without meaning to. Malik was quiet for a long time. Outside, traffic hummed and children played in the courtyard below. My cousin Marcus is a good man, he said finally. He's helped a lot of families save their businesses, but he doesn't work with people who don't respect him. Claudia's heart sank. Your father dismissed me as poor and worthless, Malik said calmly. Marcus knows about that. The whole family does. Of course they did. Claudia felt heat rising in her cheeks. But, Malik continued, if your father wants to apologize, really apologize, not just because he needs something, Marcus might consider meeting with him. You'd do that? I'm not doing anything. I'm saying your father can call my cousin's office like any other potential client. If he can prove he's changed, if he can show respect, maybe Marcus will help. Claudia stared at him. You're giving my family a chance to prove they've learned something. I'm giving your father a chance to be a better man. What he does with it is up to him. That night, Claudia called her parents and explained Malik's response. Her father was furious. He wants me to apologize? To him? After everything our family has done for this community? Dad, what exactly have we done for the community? We've created jobs, invested in local businesses. We've made money and acted like that made us better than everyone else, Claudia interrupted. And now someone we insulted is offering to help us anyway, if we can show a little humility. I'm not apologizing to that man. Then you'll lose everything. Graham hung up on her, but 20 minutes later Evelyn called back. Your father is... Thinking about it, her mother said carefully. This is hard for him, honey. He's not used to asking for help. He's not asking for help, Claudia said. He's asking for favors based on connections. That's different. I know, but maybe this is a chance for all of us to be better people. For the first time in weeks, Claudia heard something new in her mother's voice. Not just desperation, but genuine reflection. Maybe it is, Mom. After she hung up, Claudia sat in her apartment thinking about trust and timing and the terrible complexity of human motives. Was she falling for Malik because he was a good man, or because he represented everything she'd been taught to dismiss? Was he helping her family because he cared about her, or because he was simply a decent person who helped when he could? Maybe the answer was both. Maybe most real emotions were complicated like that. Maybe learning to live with uncertainty was part of growing up. 3 days later, Graham Whitmore made the hardest phone call of his life. Claudia wasn't there to hear it, but Malik told her about it later. How her father had called Marcus Johnson's office and asked for a meeting. How he'd stumbled through an apology that sounded rehearsed at first, then became more genuine as he went on. Your dad told my cousin he'd misjudged his entire family, Malik said. Said he'd raised his daughter to value the wrong things, and now he was seeing the consequences. Did Marcus believe him? Marcus agreed to meet with him. That's something. The meeting was set for the following week. In the meantime, Claudia tried to focus on work and on the careful friendship she was building with Malik. But Tasha's words kept echoing in her mind. People like her say sorry when they get caught, but they don't actually change. What if she was right? What if Claudia's feelings for Malik were just a more sophisticated form of using him? What if she could never fully separate her genuine emotions from the fact that knowing him benefited her family? The questions followed her everywhere, making her second-guess every conversation, every smile, every moment of happiness she felt in his presence. Love was supposed to make things simpler, but this felt like the most complicated thing she'd ever attempted. And she was terrified that she was going to mess it up. The night before her father's meeting with Marcus Johnson, Claudia couldn't sleep. She paced her apartment, replaying every conversation she'd had with Malik over the past month. Had she been unconsciously manipulating him? Had some part of her always known this moment might come? At midnight, her phone buzzed with a text from Malik. "Can't sleep either? How did you know? Lucky guess. Want to take a walk?" They met in the building's courtyard, a small garden space between the towers. The night was warm, and city lights filtered through the trees. "You're worried about tomorrow," Malik said. It wasn't a question. "I'm worried about everything. About my family, about my father's health, about whether I'm the person I think I am, or the person everyone else thinks I am." They walked slowly around the garden path. Malik was quiet, letting her work through her thoughts. "What if Tasha is right?" Claudia said finally. "What if I'm just a selfish person who's gotten better at hiding it? What if you're not? How can I know for sure?" Malik stopped walking and turned to face her. "Claudia, everybody has mixed motives for everything they do. You care about me, but you also care about your family. Those things don't cancel each other out. But what if you stop trying to be perfect and just try to be honest?" His voice was gentle but firm. "What if you accept that you're human, and humans are complicated and that's okay?" Claudia felt tears starting to form. "I want to be good enough for you." "You already are. Not because you're perfect, but because you're trying, because you show up, because when you mess up, you admit it and do better next time." "What if I mess up again?" "Then you'll do better the time after that." Standing there in the quiet garden with city lights filtering through the leaves, Claudia felt something shift inside her chest. Not the desperate need to prove herself that had driven her for months, but something calmer, more settled. Maybe Malik was right. Maybe being human meant accepting uncertainty, mixed motives, the possibility of making mistakes. Maybe real growth meant learning to live with complexity instead of demanding simple answers. "Whatever happens tomorrow," she said quietly, "I want you to know that my feelings for you are real. Complicated, maybe, but real." Malik smiled. "I know. Mine are too." Complicated? Real. For the first time since this whole journey began, Claudia felt like that might be enough. Tomorrow would bring whatever it brought. Her father would either prove he'd changed or he wouldn't. Her family would either be saved or they wouldn't. Marcus Johnson would either help them or he wouldn't. But tonight, standing in a quiet garden with a man who'd taught her to measure worth by kindness instead of wealth, Claudia finally felt like she was becoming the person she wanted to be. Slowly, imperfectly, but genuinely. And that was enough to build a life on. Graham Whitmore's meeting with Marcus Johnson took place on a Wednesday morning in a downtown office building. Claudia wasn't there, but she felt every minute of it from her desk at Sterling & Associates. Her phone rang at 11:30. "Claudia, it's Dad." Graham's voice was strange, quieter than usual, almost uncertain. "How did it go?" "He's an impressive man, very professional, very direct." Graham paused. "He asked me some hard questions." "Like what?" "Like why a man who thought his family was too poor to date deserved help from that same family. Like whether I understood that my daughter's relationship with his cousin wasn't a business transaction." Claudia's chest tightened. "What did you say?" "I told him the truth. That I'd raised you to value the wrong things. That I was proud of my money and my status. And I thought that made us better than other people. That I was wrong." "Did he believe you?" Graham was quiet for a long moment. "He said he'd consider working with us. But first, He wants to meet you and your mother. He wants to see if our whole family understands what we did wrong." After they hung up, Claudia sat staring at her computer screen. Marcus Johnson was testing them, not just her father, but all of them. He wanted to make sure the change was real before he'd risk his reputation helping them. It was exactly what Malik would do. Patient, careful, but fair. That afternoon, Claudia left work early and drove to her parents' house. She found them in the living room, looking smaller somehow than they had just days before. "How are you feeling, Dad?" "Better. The doctor says the stress episode wasn't serious, but I need to manage things better going forward." Graham's voice was thoughtful. "Evelyn and I have been talking about a lot of things." "Like what?" Evelyn spoke up. "Like how we raised you, the things we taught you to value." "Mom." "No, let me say this." Evelyn's voice was firm but gentle. "We taught you that money was the most important thing, that people with less money were somehow worth less as human beings. And when you repeated those lessons..." She trailed off, her eyes filling with tears. "When I said those horrible things to Malik, I sounded just like you both," Claudia finished quietly. "Yes." The word came out as a whisper, and I've been thinking about what kind of grandmother I want to be someday, what kind of values I want to pass on. Graham cleared his throat. "The thing is, honey, we might not have much money to leave you anymore. The house, the investments, most of it might be gone." "But maybe that's not the worst thing," Evelyn added. "Maybe it's a chance to figure out who we are when we don't have money to hide behind." Claudia looked at her parents, really looked at them. They seemed older, more fragile, but also more genuine than she'd seen them in years. "I'm proud of you both," she said finally, "for being willing to change." "We're proud of you too," Graham said, "for being braver than we were, for facing what you did wrong and trying to fix it. Even if it means dating someone who doesn't fit our old ideas about success," Evelyn added with a small smile. Claudia felt tears starting to form. "You mean that?" "We mean it," Graham said. "Anyone who's willing to help us after what we said about his family. That's someone with real character." The meeting with Marcus Johnson took place the following Monday. This time, the whole Whitmore family attended. Marcus Johnson looked like an older version of Malik. Same kind eyes, same quiet confidence. His office was elegant, but not flashy, with family photos on his desk and community awards on the walls. "I appreciate you all coming," Marcus said, settling behind his desk. "Before we discuss business, I want to understand where your family stands on some things." He looked directly at Claudia. "My cousin tells me you've been working to repair the damage from your comments about our family." Claudia's mouth went dry. "Yes, sir. I've been trying to." "Tell me about that." For the next 20 minutes, Claudia found herself explaining everything. The audio clip, the professional consequences, the slow process of learning to see people differently. Marcus listened without judgment, asking occasional questions. "And your relationship with Malik?" Marcus asked. "What is that to you?" "It's..." Claudia struggled for the right words. "He's become important to me. Not because of his connections or what he can do for my family, but because of who he is. He's shown me what it means to be a good person." "And if I refuse to help your family, what happens to that relationship?" The question hung in the air. Claudia felt her parents' eyes on her. "The relationship continues," she said firmly, "because it was never about this. It's about two people getting to know each other and caring about each other." Marcus nodded slowly, then turned to Graham. "Mr. Whitmore, my cousin tells me you've apologized for your family's comments about our worth. I want to hear that apology myself." Graham straightened in his chair. For a moment, he looked like the old Graham. proud, defensive. Then his shoulders sagged. "I was wrong," he said simply. "I taught my daughter that people's worth was measured by their bank accounts. I looked at your cousin and saw someone beneath us, when I should have seen someone doing honest work and treating people with respect. I'm sorry for that. And I'm sorry it took losing everything to teach me better." "And Mrs. Whitmore?" Evelyn's voice was steady, but emotional. "I enabled my husband's attitudes. I stayed quiet when I should have spoken up. I let my daughter learn that being wealthy made us better people. I'm ashamed of that, and I'm committed to doing better." Marcus was quiet for a long moment, studying all three of them. "I'm going to help your family," he said finally. "Not because you deserve it, but because everyone deserves a second chance to be better people. But I have conditions." "Anything," Graham said quickly. "First, this arrangement is strictly business. No family discounts, no special treatment because your daughter is dating my cousin. You'll pay my full fee." Graham nodded. "Second, if I hear that any of you have gone back to your old attitudes, if I hear about you treating anyone as less than human because of their job or their income, our business relationship ends immediately." "Understood," Evelyn said. "Third," Marcus looked at Claudia. "You need to understand that dating Malik means joining a family that doesn't measure worth by wealth. We care about character, kindness, and community. If you can't handle that, walk away now." "I can handle it," Claudia said. "I want to be part of that kind of family." Marcus smiled for the first time since they'd arrived. "Then let's talk about saving your business." Over the next month, everything changed. Marcus Johnson worked with Graham to restructure the company's debt and develop a more sustainable business model. It was humbling work. Graham had to admit mistakes, make compromises, and accept help from people he'd previously looked down on. But slowly, the business stabilized. The house was saved, though the family had to give up most of their luxury spending. Graham's health improved as his stress decreased. Evelyn started volunteering at a community center, working with elderly residents who reminded her of the customers Claudia had described from Malik's delivery route. At work, Claudia's situation also improved. Susan noticed her renewed focus and dedication. 2 clients who had left returned after hearing about Claudia's efforts to make amends. The whispers and sideways glances gradually faded as people moved on to newer gossip. But the most important changes were personal. Claudia and Malik's relationship deepened slowly, built on honest conversations and shared experiences. They took walks together, tried new restaurants, talked about books and dreams and the future they might build together. There were still difficult moments. Some of Malik's friends remained suspicious of Claudia's motives. Some of her colleagues made awkward comments about her charity case boyfriend. But they faced each challenge together, with patience and trust that grew stronger each day. "I think it's time," Malik said one evening as they sat in the building's courtyard garden, "for you to meet my grandmother." Claudia's stomach fluttered. "Is that a big deal?" "It's the biggest deal." Malik's smile was gentle but serious. "Lillian Johnson doesn't suffer fools, and she doesn't give her approval lightly. But if she likes you, and if she doesn't, then we'll deal with that too. But I think she will." Lillian Johnson lived in a small house, in a neighborhood that had seen better days, but was clearly loved by its residents. The front porch was swept clean, and flower boxes bloomed under every window. "Don't try to impress her," Malik warned as they walked up the front steps. "Just be yourself." The woman who answered the door was small but commanding, with silver hair pulled back in a neat bun and sharp eyes that seemed to see everything at once. "So, you're Claudia," she said, looking her up and down. "Come in. Dinner's almost ready." Lillian's house was warm and lived in, with family photos covering every surface, and the smell of something delicious coming from the kitchen. She led them to a dining room where the table was set with mismatched china that somehow looked elegant together. Malik tells me you work in communications, Lillian said, as they sat down to plates of fried chicken, collard greens, and cornbread. Yes, ma'am. I help companies develop marketing strategies for luxury brands. And you make good money doing that? I do well, yes, ma'am. Lillian nodded thoughtfully. And what do you think of my grandson's work? Claudia glanced at Malik, who was watching the conversation with careful attention. I think he does important work, she said carefully. He takes care of people, makes sure they get things they need. That matters. Does it matter to you, or are you just saying what you think I want to hear? The question was direct, almost harsh. Claudia felt heat rising in her cheeks. Mrs. Johnson, I know you have every reason to be suspicious of me. I know what I said about your family, and I know how that must have sounded to you. It sounded like ignorance talking. Question is, are you still ignorant? Claudia took a breath. I'm learning. Every day, I'm learning things I should have known all along. About respect, about what makes people valuable, about how wrong I was to judge anyone by their bank account. And my grandson? What is he to you? Claudia looked at Malik, sitting quietly beside her. He's the best man I've ever known. Kind, patient, honest, hardworking. He makes me want to be a better person. And if he never makes more money than he does now? If he stays a delivery driver his whole life? Then I'll be proud to stand beside a man who does honest work and treats people with dignity. Lillian was quiet for a long moment, studying Claudia's face. Then she reached across the table and patted Claudia's hand. Child, you've got some sense in you after all. The rest of dinner passed more easily. Lillian told stories about Malik as a boy, and Claudia found herself laughing at tales of his childhood determination and mischief. When it came time to leave, Lillian walked them to the door. Claudia, she said, pulling her aside while Malik was getting their coats. That boy has been hurt before, by people who thought they were better than him. Don't you hurt him too. I won't, Claudia said firmly. I promise. Promises are easy, actions are hard, but if you keep showing up, keep choosing him every day, well, then you might just deserve him. As they drove home, Malik was unusually quiet. What's wrong? Claudia asked. Did I say something wrong at dinner? No, you were perfect. He pulled over and parked under a streetlight. Claudia, I need to tell you something. Her heart stopped. Okay. I love you. The words hung in the air between them. Simple, honest, transformative. I love you too, she whispered. Even though I'm just a delivery driver, even though I'll probably never be rich. Because you're the man who picks up strangers' lost jewelry and makes sure it gets returned safely. Because you remember every customer's name and care about their lives. Because you helped my family even after we insulted yours. Claudia's voice was thick with emotion. I love you because of who you are, not despite it. Malik reached for her hand. I was scared to say it. Scared you'd think it was too soon. Or that you weren't ready. I've been ready for weeks. I was just scared you'd think I was using you somehow. And I was scared I was just your project. Your way of proving you'd changed. They looked at each other in the dim car, both laughing a little at their shared fears. We're kind of a mess, aren't we? Claudia said. The best kind of mess, Malik replied. The kind that figures itself out as it goes. Spring turned to summer, and their relationship continued to grow. Malik met Claudia's parents properly, enduring Graham's awkward attempts to prove he'd changed, and Evelyn's sincere efforts to be welcoming. Claudia became a regular at Lillian's Sunday dinners, learning family recipes and listening to stories about 3 generations of Johnsons who had built their lives on hard work and love. At work, Claudia found ways to make her job more meaningful. She started seeking out clients whose products actually improved people's lives. She volunteered to work on pro bono campaigns for local nonprofits. It wasn't a complete career change, but it was a start. Malik began taking night classes again, working toward the business degree he'd put on hold years ago. Claudia helped him study, and he helped her understand that success didn't always look like climbing corporate ladders. They had their difficult moments, arguments about money and expectations and the different worlds they came from, but they worked through each challenge with patience and honesty, building trust one conversation at a time. One evening in late July, they were having dinner at the same cafe where they'd had their first real conversation. "Can I ask you something?" Claudia said, playing with her napkin. "Always. Do you think we would have met some other way? If the whole lobby thing hadn't happened?" Malik considered this. "Honestly, probably not. We lived in the same building for a year and never really saw each other. So something good came out of something terrible. Maybe. Or maybe we would have met when we were both ready to really see each other." Claudia smiled. "I like that better. The idea that we found each other when we were supposed to. When you were ready to change, and I was ready to trust again." "Are you glad it happened this way?" Malik reached across the table and took her hand. "I'm glad we found each other, however it happened." 6 months later, on a crisp October evening, they stood in the lobby of their building, the same lobby where everything had started. Rosa was working late, organizing packages for the next day's deliveries. "Remember when you two couldn't stand each other?" Rosa said, grinning as she watched them together. "I remember when I was an awful person who said awful things," Claudia replied. "And when Malik was kinder to me than I deserved." "You weren't awful," Malik said gently. "You were lost. There's a difference. Same result, though. But not the same ending." Rosa pulled out her phone and snapped a photo of them. "For the building newsletter, local couple proves people can change and grow together." "Don't you dare put us in the newsletter," Claudia laughed. "Too late. I'm already writing the caption." As they headed toward the elevator, Malik stopped and pulled Claudia close. "What?" she asked. "Just this. Us. Here where it all started." Claudia looked around the marble lobby, at the package counter where she'd been so cruel, at the spot where Malik had returned her grandmother's bracelet with more grace than she'd shown him, at the space where they'd both learned to be better people. "It's funny," she said. "I used to think this building was perfect because everything was expensive and beautiful. Now I think it's perfect because it brought us together. Even the ugly parts, especially the ugly parts, they taught us who we wanted to become." The elevator arrived with a soft chime. As they stepped inside, Claudia caught their reflection in the polished steel doors. They looked right together, not because they matched some superficial idea of compatibility, but because they'd chosen each other despite their differences, because they'd built something real from honesty and effort and hope. "I love you," she said, watching their reflection. "I love you too." The doors closed, and they rose together toward whatever came next. Imperfect people who'd learned to love imperfectly, but genuinely. People who'd discovered that real worth had nothing to do with bank accounts and everything to do with how you treated the person standing right in front of you. People who'd found each other not despite their flaws, but because they'd been willing to face those flaws and choose something better. In the end, that was enough. More than enough. That was everything. 1 year later, Claudia would stand in the same lobby in a simple white dress, waiting for Malik to arrive for their courthouse wedding ceremony. Rosa would be their witness, and Lillian would insist on throwing them a reception in the community center where Evelyn now volunteered. Graham would walk Claudia down the aisle with tears in his eyes, proud not of the money saved, but of the daughter who'd taught him what really mattered. But that's another story. This one ends here, in an elevator rising through a building where two people learned to see past their prejudices and find something real, where love grew slowly, carefully, out of respect earned and trust built day by day, where a woman who'd once measured worth by wealth learned to measure it by kindness instead. and where a man who'd been dismissed as too poor to date proved that richness had nothing to do with money and everything to do with the size of your heart.